That can be our opening topic then.
There we go.
The intro to the show.
Okay.
Welcome back to Can You Not? Amber is once again absent. She's off in Pennsylvania, but in her absence we have Bryce Lewis, our most frequent guest star and most dearly beloved to at least one of us in this room.
Nope.
Herself.
Yep.
But first, I do want to say that OG Bobby Johnson, Amber's dad, said that for the bike thing that they did to raise money against Alzheimer's, they raised he personally raised $13.95 himself, $1,395, and combined the entire organization raised $408,000 total. So he says, "Thank you, Can You Not? #awesome," which is awesome.
That's so exciting.
That's pretty cool. And we hope that his bike ride was smooth and fun. We also got a comment from someone named Bryce.
I didn't comment.
Bryce says, "I disagree with the American dream topic."
That's
the
awkward.
question.
Now I'm here though.
That is really weird.
I could just say it. Okay,
Do you want to read it in your own voice?
No, you can just read it. It's fine.
The question was whether or not it was dead. But I think the question you guys answered was if it was attainable. I don't think a dream could die. And for me, the dream is security, financial, emotional, etc. If that dream was dead, why do any of us work or fall in love or do anything? Okay. I do think the dream is attainable. I don't think it's easy. That's why it's a dream, not the American reality. Care to elaborate on those thoughts, Bryce, now that you're here in person?
No.
Wow.
No, I don't feel like I have anything more to say.
I was arguing that the dream was never a thing for people of color. Like, it was never a reality. So, okay, obtainability, yes, but if we're talking about the dream itself, is it dead? For us, it never existed.
I disagree. I still disagree with that. I always think that there was an American dream for everyone. Because, why else would my dad come here in the first place?
Yeah, but your dad wasn't born in, slavery times.
Yeah, but he was born in an impoverished country.
Yeah, but it was still the modern day Americas, I think, what you were trying to say,
What the heck are you
right?
talking? Do you know where my dad's from? He came to America from another country, just like white people from Ireland came from another country where it was impoverished. And to come to America was, the thing to do to make your life better.
But I think Jesse was talking about more historically. Like, you're saying more
I'm saying a historical framework. And the other thing that I'm trying to, I guess, allude to is this whole idea where we have this American dream, but it's always marketed towards everyone, but when they show everyone, it's white people. As much as we want to say, hey, we're a nation full of multiculturalism,
the great American melting pot.
Pluralism, we try to define ourselves on pluralism. That's not the case. That's not the case.
That's
at
not
all.
what I'm talking about, though.
You're saying that it attracts people from the outside countries. My father is from third world Jamaica as well, but he wasn't attracted here for that.
Well, I'm not saying that it attracts everyone. I'm just saying that the fact that it attracts some people means that it's there.
I still don't think it exists.
And you're never going to convince me. I don't think that's... Well, I didn't have comments.
I'm not trying to convince you.
Yeah, I didn't have comments because I don't think it's never going to be resolved because of how people feel about it, and that's fine.
Wasn't trying to convince you.
Anyway, our theme for today is one that did not go over well because of its vagueness, but I chose feelings, which I kind of like vague themes. I think it's fun.
That defeats the whole purpose of having a theme if it's vague.
Not necessarily. It's a guiding post.
But if you can be so broad as to go in any direction, then why do you have a theme at all? Just talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, there's certain days where we could have more specific themes and certain days where it can be broader themes.
Okay, Joe.
But I'll try to pick more specific themes in the future is the message I'm getting from the reception of it. Traditionally we always say we have 5 senses. That's what we're always taught when we're little. Hearing, seeing, smelling, taste, and feeling in terms of actual touch. But a good portion of the population also knows that there are not only 5 senses. There are quite a few senses that our bodies have, and I just wondered what you guys thought of each of these senses. So, number 10 on this list that I found on listverse.com is the feeling of fullness.
Okay, well,
So it's
first
like-
off, I don't think that senses are feelings. So, like, I don't think you followed your own topic. But that's
Well-
regardless. Senses are not feelings. Feeling is a sense, but senses are not feelings.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you get.
Don't try and
It's
convince me
like-
otherwise, Joseph. You went too broad on your broad topic. But to answer your question, the feeling of fullness, is that a sense? Is that what you're trying to say to me?
This is what the article says. It says, when you've had enough to eat and drink, your body always seems to let you know. It turns out this is a separate sense within your body involving its own cluster of sensory receptors that tell you when you need to stop eating. Some of these are stretch receptors, which let you know that your stomach is becoming full.
I mean, by a abstract tangent, I guess that deals with feelings, but that wasn't what. No.
It's a feeling.
The feeling of fullness, are you trying to ask me do I think it's a sense?
Well,
Do I think it should be like the seventh sense or something, or the sixth sense?
well,
or
you see, they
something?
always the sixth sense.
No.
How do they define senses? Is what they basically always, when they talk about having extra senses, it seems like they're just talking about clusters of sensory receptors, but isn't that what all of our senses are anyway, when we touch something or when we
Yes.
smell something or when we see something?
I don't know. Yeah, probably.
It's just sensory receptors.
Go to the next one.
The next one is thermoception,
So,
which
like,
is
temperature.
yeah. So I guess that one makes more sense to me.
That seems like it goes with just touch, though.
But still, like, touch doesn't measure
Like
something
the
like
temperature or something?
yeah. Because temperature, when you think about it, is completely removed, and you don't need to be touching something in order to feel temperature.
But you also can be touching something to feel temperature.
That is true too. But aren't those people who can, what do they call those people who can touch but they can't feel? You know?
Like they don't have pain receptors?
Yeah, like they don't have pain receptors.
Well, I'm not talking about feeling pain from a temperature. I'm talking about feeling temperature in general.
But do you think I wonder if those people can also feel temperature as well. If they can't recept pain, I wonder if they can feel temperature.
They can feel temperature, but I don't think that they would, like, say they touch fire, they would know that it's hot, but they wouldn't feel the pain to move their hand away.
It's
Right.
going off of our evolutionary senses.
Right.
The other thing too is it goes off of our memory because we understand what 76 degrees Fahrenheit feels like from learning what 76 degrees Fahrenheit is through our own experiences.
That's why Fahrenheit makes more sense than metric, because like Fahrenheit for temperature in terms of weather, of course it makes sense to have it based off the body. I don't give a shit
Yeah.
if that means like it's a cooling temperature of water. Like,
Right.
I hate Celsius when it comes to weather. It doesn't make any sense.
But like, it's so selfish that you focus an entire metric on humans. It's like, well, all of us that are going to understand the metric are humans, so why not adapt a sense of, temperature
I don't
to
need
humans?
to know how cold it's gonna, what temperature the water's gonna freeze at if I just want to know if I should put on a sweater or not. Like,
Right.
that's dumb. Next one, number 8.
Next one is a sense of oxygen levels. The purpose of peripheral chemoreceptors is to keep an eye on the blood in your arteries, monitoring the oxygen level as well as the amount of carbon dioxide and the pH level. This allows your body when the levels of carbon dioxide are too high, thereby allowing you to exhale at the correct rate.
I don't even know what this is anymore.
It's like, that seems like a really loose sense of a sense, I guess.
They
I don't
all
know.
are.
But this one feels looser than the other ones because, like, okay, the sense of when you know when you have to breathe. Like,
What is your metric for this? Like, I don't understand.
But I saw this on other websites too. Other websites are like, yeah, this is totally a sense.
Well,
And
I
I'm like,
feel like they shouldn't be additional, as in like 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah,
I
they
feel
just
like
are.
they should be supplementary.
They're add-ons. Yeah, they're just add-on
Yeah.
to the ones that we already have. Like,
So it'd be like 1A, B.
exactly. That
1A,
makes
C.
sense. Like, to say that there are other senses is stupid. Like,
yeah.
no.
Because I feel like a lot of these still deal with, like, I guess kind of like what you're hinting at, the idea of the sense of touch. It seems like the sense of touch is a very broad thing that could encompass some of these, I think, anyway. Number 7 is the chemoreceptor trigger
Such
zone.
a strange picture. The lady with her head, holding an apple with her head in a picnic basket being held by another man.
It's a
Or
very
I'm
odd
assuming
picture.
it's a man, because except for...
It's a pretty meaty hands.
Yeah.
The chemoreceptor trigger zone basically communicates
You can
with...
tell that's an older lady because her hands are wrinkly AF.
Oh, very judgmental.
Hands don't lie.
The chemoreceptor trigger zone basically communicates with drugs or hormones that carried through your body via the bloodstream. Besides this, it also tells your body when to throw up. If this sense is damaged, it can lead to regular uncontrollable vomiting or sometimes a complete loss of the ability to vomit. Such damage usually occurs as a result of a stroke.
Interesting.
I feel like it's very apparent how terrible it would be if you were vomiting all the time, but I guess I don't think about how terrible it would be if I could not
never
vomit.
That would be terrible.
That would probably be not good. Magnetoreception. Okay. Did you know your body can potentially figure out your direction based on its sense of the Earth's magnetic fields?
Okay.
So like your inner ear?
I guess kind of like your sense of direction.
I mean, there's no possible way. I know people that get lost while looking at the phone.
Yeah. They're texting and they walk into like a building.
No, like actually trying to navigate using navigation on their phone.
Oh, yeah,
lost.
yeah.
Like there's people that don't have this. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I feel like it's possible. I don't believe like it's an innate thing. Like maybe you can tap into it with training or something.
Is this X-Men or
like,
something?
With like lucid, like how you can tap into lucid dreaming. Like maybe with some sort of like you're trying real hard to figure it out, but like.
Well, it says.
Do I think that it could be possible? Yes. Do I think it is in this day and age of technology and not needing to know exactly where things are? Probably not.
I'm sure it's probably even more muted if it does happen. It says, while there remains some debate as to how capable we are of using this sense properly, it would obviously be incredibly useful for navigational purposes.
See, but
well,
like,
obviously.
If that's a thing, then like, why did people of old even need to use the stars and moon for navigation if we can just do it with our own bodies?
Well, it says this sense is much more common and more pronounced amongst other animals,
Well, this
such
is not
as
about
bees,
animals.
birds, and cows.
This is not an article about animals. We're not talking about animal senses.
Number 5 is vestibular sense.
So like your sense of balance?
Yeah, equibroception. It's more commonly known as a sense of balance. As many of us have learned the hard way, the vestibular sense can be severely impeded by drinking large amounts of alcohol. Your sense of balance is regulated by your inner ear, and though it is part of the system involving it in hearing, it is considered to be a separate sense altogether. So that would be like hearing 1B or whatever, I guess. A sense of itching.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, like what is this?
I'm sorry, your article can go home.
What number is that one?
4.
God, skip to 1.
Yeah, please.
Wait, I actually, what is 3 and 2? I'm curious.
3 is nociception, which is the sense that allows you to feel pain.
So touch.
Okay, so
Which is in itself is supposedly broken into 3 separate senses: pain located in the skin, pain involving your bones, and pain in the organs themselves.
What about emotional pain?
Number 2 is chronoception,
So
or
sense of time.
yes, perception of time. Which
I know words.
I feel like that would kind of count as a sense.
I don't think it counts as a separate sense, honestly. I don't.
Just
Because you call it a sense of something doesn't mean it's a sense.
But we kind of have this perception of like how long a second lasts.
Yeah,
even
but
when we don't have,
perception
like,
isn't a
clock in
sense.
front. Maybe that's what they're trying to argue. I don't know what they're trying to argue.
Perception
honestly.
is not a sense. What this means.
But it's governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which controls our circadian rhythms.
Okay.
And number 1 is proprioception. It is the sense of where your arms and legs are in relation to the rest of your body.
I don't feel like these are not separate senses.
This is what the police are testing when they drag you out of a car for a sobriety test, and they make you touch your nose with your finger. It says there are rare cases, still largely a mystery to doctors, in which people lose their sense of proprioception. If this happens, the most simple and ordinary tasks, such as opening a door, picking up a cup, or using a pencil, become the most difficult chores. Such people have to carefully watch every movement of their limbs in order to use them successfully. I feel like that would be terrible.
I mean, just
I'm
imagine.
so angry at this article.
I know.
Well, if you think that's bad, supposedly some scientists believe that we have 21 total.
Those scientists are not real.
What would you define as a sense if you had to? Would you allow any of those as an additional sixth one?
Not as additional.
Mm.
You know what sense I'm considering?
What?
The sense of effery. I had a conversation with my mother the other day, and we were discussing this crazy political process that we call the 2016 election. And she basically fell back upon her feelings about candidates, and how she goes through voting is she votes with her heart. Now, for me, that's problematic, But I wanted to read more into this and understand, what are these feelings? Why would you feel to rely upon your heart, your emotional appealing process of looking at someone through your perspective and deciding if you want them or not? Right. Not based off of facts, voting records, anything. In this article at QZ.com, also known as Quartz, the headline is, "Ethicists say voting with your heart without a care about the consequences is actually immoral."
And the sky is blue, water is white.
I mean, but here's the thing though, it's common sense to us, but it's not common sense to a lot of people. Fervent idealism, which places support for a certain candidate above all practical consequences of that support, is wrong according to ethicists. It's also immoral, which was redundant. But it goes into this idea that when you're voting, there's two schools of ethic. Utilitarianism, which suggests that the best action is whichever creates the maximum happiness for the greatest number of people, i.e. the best vote with the eye to the political consequences. On the flip side, deontological approach argues that the action itself, rather than the consequences, has moral worth. And this goes into a lot of theological ideals, or at least the people that subscribe to those seem to vote that way. And the issue I have with this is we know that our emotional values and appeals change rapidly. That's without a doubt. Whether we'd like to believe that or not, our emotions change rapidly, and our feelings, how you're stating this, feelings. I'm triggered by your own topic, feelings. It's dangerous to vote with your feelings, to vote with your heart, in my opinion, because you're looking at how this affects me solely rather than the consensus. And someone might say, well, my soul existence is a representation of the collective. But in fact, that's not the case, in my opinion. So I'm wondering if you two agree with that statement, or if you think that voting for your heart is actually not a problematic thing. Because I mean, this deals with feelings, right?
Yeah.
100%.
I think there's kind of a balance, because I feel like there's going to be certain issues that do have at least a bit to do with having a sense of empathy, I guess. And I guess if you include voting for something based upon empathy for those who perhaps are less fortunate, I feel like maybe that's where feelings might come into play in the voting. But yeah, I think I know what you're saying. If you're talking more about like you said, track record, or previous history, the platform they've put out there, then I think you have to make the compromise and be able to go, even if it's some person that you, or some kind of bill or something like that you don't feel is right, but from doing the research is right. You have to be humble enough to say, I know this doesn't feel right, but based upon everything I know, this is the logical decision.
And what's interesting to chime in about this, they go into the whole idea, if you're voting for a far left or far right candidate, it means that you're just going to lose the election. Then you've brought the world further away from the justice rather than closer to it.
Especially also, even more so depends on where you live.
Exactly.
If you live in Ohio, this is not the time to vote for a third-party candidate. I'm sorry. If you want to vote for a third-party candidate, vote for Joe DeMayor for Senate, okay? But don't vote for someone for president. You don't start with president. Don't start with president.
This has been a PSA by Bryce Lewis. No, and that's something that Bryce and I have talked about a lot, honestly, is it, and you said you got into an argument with someone who said well, I don't want it to be, or how did she phrase it? She said, I don't want to vote for someone based off of fear of something. And
how else do you know how to vote? That's literally all we've known how to do. Everything they do is based off fear. If you're voting for Trump, you're doing it out of fear. If you're voting for Hillary, you're doing it out of fear. If you're voting for a third-party candidate, you're doing it out of fear because you don't want Hillary. What the hell do you think it is? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think, and maybe that's where it kind of comes into play. Sometimes voting for a third-party candidate who aligns with your values feels right. And in certain cases, you should, put that out there. Like you're saying, when it comes to smaller offices where it's much more attainable.
If you want a third-party candidate to run for president and
Mm-hmm.
actually have a chance of winning, you have to start at lower levels of government.
Right.
It's
And-
not going to happen with president. If you're voting for Jill Stein, as much as I like who she represents, you're voting for someone who has more experience running for office than being in office,
Right.
which is ridiculous.
And that's why I think the Green Party had so much momentum in the late 90s, because they were starting to get smaller governmental positions, but they really dropped the ball in continuing that mission, and that's why they have
and
much
there's
less
still
power.
a good amount of people.
I mean, there's-
but,
it's
like
still,
Green
like-
Party and Libertarian and small government, it's just they don't get the support. Like they just don't have the money. And if
Yeah.
you want that, people like yes, I probably will. I be supporting Joe DeMare in financially. Yeah, I will for Senate. Will I be voting for him come election time? Probably not, just because I know he didn't have that support from the beginning. Had I known he was running since he'd been campaigning, I may have been more for it. But it's a little too late now. Especially I don't want Rob Portman. So like.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I want to make that chance right now.
This means nothing to you if you're from Ohio.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess what's interesting is you two are going along with some of the philosophies that are coming from this article.
Utilitarian.
Utilitarian.
I'm very utilitarian.
And it's this whole idea, which was stated by this Florida A&M professor of philosophy, and he went into detail basically saying, I might say principles tell me to vote for Bernie, but I'm not going to let my principles condemn other people to suffering.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's like the underlining truth of
Yeah.
logic versus voting for your heart. So these whole idea, singular, whole idea of feelings,
Yeah.
voting with your feelings rather than logically looking at it and kind of ciphering through what makes you decide this candidate to
Yeah.
vote for this
Yeah, and
candidate.
sometimes if you're lucky, those two things align. It's just this is not a lucky time.
No, it's not. I feel like it's very split right now. Very split.
I feel like people who either vote entirely by logic or vote entirely by reason do that within the decisions of their daily life too, because like they might, and not to make things a little dark, but sometimes that's why people stay in abusive relationships. They say it, but it feels like he's just a nice person or she's just a nice person, and it's like it feels right to be here, and it
Well, I
feels
would
like I should
suggest
stay.
emotional abuse is different than voting with feelings or
Oh yeah, no, I'm not
feelings.
comparing. I'm just saying the type of people who, if you're bound to a lot to feeling, and you're bound a lot to making decisions by feeling, it can sometimes cloud your judgment in a very extreme situation like that, I guess is the point I was
And
trying
some people would say voting with logic takes away the humanistic feel
That's
of
true,
voting,
too.
which is actually very counterproductive when you're trying to have this argument, because if you're thinking logically and voting logically for the greater good, then there is a humanist ideal to this.
Yeah.
So it's so counterproductive when people come up with that. Bryce is holding her hand up like a meme right now, and I'm feeling the same exact way, because that argument is always so counterproductive. Why ever bring up those points?
Yeah.
I am voting with my heart by wanting the least amount of damage to happen to my country. That's literally what I'm doing.
You're using logic. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, logical decisions aren't necessarily devoid of feeling.
They're
Yeah,
not
I
sexy.
think it's selfish to vote only based on feeling and not think about the consequences of your actions. If
Right.
you're only doing it because it feels right to you, then I personally think that's selfish. Is it your right to do it? Oh yeah, do whatever you want. But don't complain to me. Don't come complaining to me if after this whole thing, Donald Trump's president, you're like, but we voted for a third party. I'm like, yeah, you did, you dingus. Why? Why did you do this to me? Now my dad's gonna get deported. Thanks a lot. The
Nope.
American dream really is dead.
Our fathers were getting deported.
Like half my family's gonna be deported. Thanks everyone. Good thing I have 2 passports. Bye.
Good thing you voted with your heart. You voted hearts out of America.
Oh god.
I mean, it's very problematic to me. The more and it stems from a conversation with my mother, and of course I love my mother to
Right.
death.
Yeah.
But it's this whole idea of voting with your heart, and it shook me, I guess. You know what I mean? But the more conversations I have with her, the more that her heart has logic to it.
Mhm.
It's just she doesn't seek it out first. But if anyone wants to see the article, it's by Olivia Goldman.
It was the intro. That one was a good one.
It's a very short. It's a very short article. It's on theqz.com. I really suggest that you read it.
I can put a link to it in the show notes if you want to check it out. It's that time of day again.
You better get that narrator voice going.
Today's sponsor is Day One. Day One is a journaling app available on the Mac Apple Store. Available on... I just said that. Okay.
Take two.
No announcer voice. Yeah. Did either of you journal when you were younger, or keep a diary?
I still do.
Oh, you still do?
Yes, I do.
Would you ever consider doing it in an online format?
I actually used to until that website I used to use went out of business, and it was a very sad day for me.
Well, Day One is still in business, and I've actually tried out their journaling app. They let me give it a go, and I must say it's really nice. It's simple, it's clean. They have little reminders that can pop up at the top of the screen, like you can set it so that it reminds you.
Oh, that's cool.
If you want to hit the snooze button too, in case you're like, 5 more minutes. But I find it really nice, and you can upload photos along with it, which makes it kind of cool. So it's almost like a combination scrapbook in a way, and it's a very pleasing sort of thing to look at, I think, anyway. So if you want to check out the Day One journal, you can go to day1app.com, or if you want to, you can also find them on the, like I said, the Apple Store, and they would love to host your memories. So definitely check out Day One.
I have this conversation with Joe a lot since he's a
Baby?
Yes, Pixar fanboy, and he'll tell me that he really thinks the movie is great. And I ask him, do you really think the movie's great, or do you have good feelings associated with it? So what I wanted to talk about is how do our feelings affect the stuff that we like? And do we like it just because it is actually really good, or do we not like it because it evokes a feeling, or like something because it evokes a feeling?
And probably in a fire.
There's a fire. Lord Jesus.
How do you really feel, fire truck? I think nostalgia plays a factor in almost everything we like to some degree. I think there's things that can be objectively good to a wide variety of people, but I think there's always going to be that attachment of like, oh, I saw that with that person at that moment, or I heard this.
Ratatouille.
Yeah.
The worst Pixar movie that Joe thinks is great.
Cars 2 is by far the worst.
Okay, yeah,
Pixar
Cars 2
movie.
is pretty bad. I take that back.
Or like, I heard this song at the time in my life when I really needed it, and so I think. But I think.
Sorry. I thought that was a good direct jab.
Look at this photograph. But maybe I think art in particular, though, is always going to have that innately built into it. Like, because the purpose of art is usually, in fact, I would say as a whole is to manipulate your feeling in some way. It's to make you find humor, or it's to make you feel sad, or it's to make you feel wistfulness. It's always kind of emotive driven, so I think it's always. I feel like
unless you consider cooking art, like I used to cook with my dad all the time, and I don't particularly like salt fish or Johnny cake, so I don't like bread, and I don't love fish, but I like that dish because I made it with my dad all the time, like a big event. Or like I like greens, but I don't love greens, but every time I smell it, like I think of cooking with my mom, and it's always like evokes a feeling, even though that's not food I would typically enjoy.
Sure. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, I feel. I mean, the music hits home with me because I was an emo kid. I was an emo kid along with an interesting like acid house fan at the time. So I don't know. Yes, the music's horrendous, but then I revisit it and I'm like, wow, this Him album is amazing.
It makes me wonder, why do I like musical theater? I don't really remember seeing. I know my first musical was either Annie, the 1987 version, not the 99.
For all you nerds out there.
And The Sound of Music. Those are the first two musicals I saw. I don't know which one came first.
And you don't really particularly like either of those.
I don't particularly like either of those. Honestly, I think they're actually like, that's the kind of musicals I would suggest for like someone's first time getting into musical theater. I'm like, yeah, start with
Baby's
that.
first theater.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what made me like musical theater, honestly. My sister was in performing arts school, but I don't remember ever really seeing any of her performances because she was never in musical theater. She was a dancer. She was an actress.
Well, then picking it apart, do you think it's something about the concept of theater that gives you a feeling rather than like a specific show that ignited it? Like,
no, I don't know. I have no idea why I like it. Like, I know that I used to see The Sound of Music with my aunt a lot. That was like our thing to watch all the time. And I know that I used to watch Annie with my family a lot. But like beyond those musicals, and I know my favorite musical is Little Shop of Horrors. I have no idea why. I don't even think it's particularly that good.
Right.
But it's my favorite. No reason.
Huh.
I do like Alan Menken though. I am biased towards his music.
I think also a thing that we usually find a lot of humor in as we get older too is like often how children's shows have affected us, and like you look back and you're like, why? What is this? Show. You look at Teletubbies and you're like, how did this exist? How did this get greenlit? Why did this have an enormous fan base of little kids? But like, that's what nostalgia does. It takes something that maybe might not even have been that great.
I don't feel nostalgic for that stuff though. I feel nostalgic for like Osmosis Jones. I know that. Joe thinks that movie's bad, but I like it.
You always
the show
twist it.
is so
no,
good.
Shut your mouth, Joe.
I think
we
the
had an
movie's
argument
fine.
about how you didn't like it.
The movie is fine. The TV show's probably better though.
It is better. It's 100%.
The TV show
it's
is
so much better. But like,
it's so good.
Osmosis Jones it's so good. I am nostalgic for that time. I was briefly into science when that movie came out, so it hit me at the right time.
No, yeah.
Yes.
I'm nostalgic for Bill Nye the Science Guy. Although I
never actually watched that show growing up.
I think
feel like
Bill
I
Nye
missed out.
holds up.
I really do. I feel like I missed out on something because I never watched that. I only watched it when I got older.
I get nostalgic watching wrestling because you can definitely tell the newer age of wrestling. There's a lot of wrestlers that have gimmicks from like legends, or they've taken moves from other people and they use it in their arsenal.
Yeah.
Like my favorite wrestler, Sasha Banks, she dressed up, her ring attire was in honor of the late great Eddie Guerrero. So that like touched my soul, and to see her, take a couple of the moves of her favorite wrestler of all time and do it on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
Like that touched something for me. But when I look back at it, some of his gimmicks were so bad. He was.
I get nostalgic for stuff I never experienced. Like I get nostalgic for like classic movies, and like I was born in the late 90s, and my sister, who is 15 years older than me, was like a teenager in the 90s. So I'm nostalgic for stuff that she experienced as a teenager, even though I was like 3.
Right. Secondhand nostalgia.
Yeah, I have like secondhand nostalgia for things that my mom and sister experienced growing up, even though like I never actually experienced. Like Turner Classic Movies is my favorite channel, and I'm nostalgic for like old classic movies. And all the time I'll be like, "Oh, do you remember this song from like the 90s?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really remember it, but I know what you're talking about." And yes, I do miss it too, even though I never experienced it the first time.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
But what's so funny is. I don't know if it was I think it was at my grandfather's. He would always have the game show network on. So like 70s and 80s game shows and even 60s, I used to watch that from time to time. So like for me, that was second, third hand nostalgia, you know what I mean? So that's wild to even think about.
I think it's easy to get it from our parents because they like to share the things they're nostalgic for. And
all of my taste in
like,
movies is from my mom.
Right.
All of it.
It's like, I love this so much, I want to share it with this person in my life, now that I have this. So it's like, it's kind of, I can see why our parents influence so much
nostalgia. You know how much of a horror movie buff. Like, I always like horror movies, but I don't think I appreciated horror movies as like art until I watched Friday the 13th with my mom for the first time. And I was like, wow, this is a thing.
And my dad plays 50s and 60s and 70s music for like nursing homes and stuff like that a lot. So of course I was always surrounded by music from that era. So like I'm nostalgic for that music that I never directly experienced because it was part of my life growing up when I was little, So
also, I watched the Monkees TV show for the first time and I was like, I was born in the wrong era. Except for not really, because I would like have no rights.
That is a great show. But yeah,
like every time I was like, what era would you like to live in? Go back in time. I was like, none of them, because I would literally have no rights. I would like to go back to the time before slavery because I'd probably be like a princess or something. That's it.
I'm trying to think, like tangible things I didn't really get from my parents, funny enough. I mean, I guess my appreciation for music was from my father, but my father likes way different stuff than I ever did, and I never got into his stuff. The thing that I got from my mother is cooking with her. And one thing that she excessively uses is garlic, like to the point that you're scaring away vampires. Every time we would go to a family cookout, my mom would either bring something from the restaurant or something like that. All of her siblings would just be like, I'm not eating this. Because there was just so much garlic. And I still do that to this day. I go through spices like it's nothing because of my mother. So I guess with cooking, I share that with you, Bryce, a little bit. Because that's the thing that gets me more than media, more than hobbies.
I got
Cooking.
plants for my mom for sure. She has a green thumb. And I was not very interested in plants until she started putting them in my room. And I was like, well, now thanks for giving me a gift that I have to take care of. And then I actually enjoyed it. So
I think some of my favorite moments of nostalgia, because it's so much easier to find old TV shows or old songs and stuff like that now. It's easier to lock into those things. I think my favorite forms of nostalgia come usually in the form of like nostalgic scents. Where like that's much a harder thing to replicate, but sometimes you'll just be like at a store.
attic books.
Yeah, yeah. But like
That smell, attic books.
Those, yes.
Books that have been in the attic for a long time.
yeah.
And they kind of smell like chocolatey. Like something like, to me, they always smell sweet. Like something was just baked, like cookies, like sugar cookies to me. That's what, and like wood. It smells like sugar cookies and like
Fiery
lumber.
wood. I like the fiery wood books. My grandmother had a Hardy Boys book.
Oh yeah, my mom
the
gave me her
60s.
Hardy Boys books.
Yeah, and I was opening through them maybe 8 years ago, and it just felt
Yeah, it
smelled
smells
like ember.
like powdery. Like I can't say with that old book attic-y. Like I love the smell of my attic. I used to spend
It's probably
like,
mildew, and we should.
yeah,
be dying,
exactly.
but-
I used to spend like hours reading books in my attic. I just like the smell of my attic. It smells nice, even though there's like exposed drywall and like that pink like fiberglass stuff up there. Like I probably shouldn't be up there.
With
And like
the pink
birds
panther on
nesting in our attic and stuff like that.
But do you ever even get a smell that you don't know what it is, but it's just something that you hadn't smelled in like 15 years, and it's just like
Yes.
it's something from the past.
Bubblegum
You don't know what
ice
it is.
cream. I've only ever had that once.
No, but I'm saying it's like something that you don't even know what the smell is. Like you just catch a
know what
whiff
you're
of
talking
something,
about.
and it's like, why does this feel familiar?
What I was actually referencing was the movie Ratatouille, which Joe loves.
Oh, yeah, we got off
which I
topic
think
for
is
that.
a crappy movie.
It's not good.
And Joe was like, "It's so good," and I'm like, "Do you have good memories?"
And then he's like,
associated
"No,
with
it's
it?"
better than Mulan."
Yeah. Joe rates Ratatouille
Yes.
higher than Mulan. What kind of nonsense is this? Ratatouille. What interesting. I don't want to watch a movie about rats interacting with human. If it was just rats cooking, yes, that'd be a great movie. I'd watch
Just rats cooking?
just rats having a rat restaurant.
That'll be the
doing
sequel.
A rat time, yes. I don't want to see the dumb boy. I like the French girl though, and I like the chef. I don't like the rat. I like the rat's brother and dad though. They're fun.
Bryce and I have actually talked about doing movie reviews together. I think it'd be pretty fun.
That would be great. You guys should really do it.
I have lots of
Stamp
opinions on movies. And I watch a lot of movies. I watch more movies than Joe probably.
That's probably true.
Because Joe's busy creating one. But anyway,
Well, if you want to see some more of our typically non-movie related opinions, you can check us out at iTunes under the podcast section, Can You Not? Give us an iTunes rating. We would love to read it on air. You can also find us on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/CYN podcast. You can email us any theme ideas, any suggestions, or any feedback at canyounotpodcast@gmail.com. And we have Facebook and Twitter
Yes.
now.
Yay!
So our Twitter is twitter.com CYNPLZ. Can you not please? And our Facebook is facebook.com/Can You Not Podcast. So give us a like. We'll be updating you with especially like our live show coming up. Now that's class on August 18th, and we plan on doing some more, so we can keep you up to date on that. But overall, people who don't like Ratatouille, can you not?
people that choose vague topics and choose not to choose within the guidelines that we have explicitly given them since, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, can you not?
I just realized I'm like the definition of nostalgia right now with my series
Your
of unfortunate
new
events
series.
tattoo. Like,
Which is amazing.
yes.
But can Bryce's tattoo not?
Not be so awesome, I know, right?
Wow, that was gross for you. That was really gross.
I
for
literally
you.
said I hate my life after I said that.
I'm like, wow, Bryce.
If you want to see it, you can go to her Twitter.
But also, if you want to hear more of my opinions, I have a blog now.
She does, as of a couple weeks ago.
Launch it.
Yes, it is www.imblew.com.